welcome back to another episode. Or welcome for the first time. This might be your first time. So welcome back and welcome to um Under a Thousand. I forgot the title for a second. I've been sick for like 4 days. I got a couple drugs in my system trying to get the congestion, but I think I'm good. But so I might not talk as much this episode, so mindful of that. But welcome to another episode of Under a Thousand Pod, the podcast where I bring on other YouTube reptile enthusiasts, hobbyists, and breeders, and we get to know them a little better, ask them about their reptile journey, ask them about their YouTube journey. It's a great way for us to share each other's company, share what we love, reptiles, and a little bit what we do like is YouTube, and get to know each other and help build this community. But it's also a great way for me to network with other breeders and other YouTubers and get to know more people and make new friends. Made so many new friends doing this, and I appreciate all you guys in the comments hanging out, just hanging out, asking great questions, and becoming amazing friends along the way. Um, but today we have a new guest on it, and we're going to talk to her. But before we do, you know what we do. We go say thank you to our sponsor for this episode. So 1 second, here we go.
This episode is sponsored by Herp Collectors. They're a family-run business specializing in investment quality morphs to help other breeders achieve their project dreams and beyond. They are working with a couple different morphs specifically. Their baseline is Clown, Desert Ghost, and Hypo. And they're dabbling a little bit in the ultra male and pies as well. So definitely check them out for ball python needs. They are slowly coming up in the industry, and they're going to be producing some amazing animals very soon. But that's not all. They also have a YouTube channel. Of course, you know we're all about YouTube over here. They do a live podcast on their YouTube channel every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called Clutch Conversations. It's a great podcast. I was actually on it, and Mike does an amazing job interviewing guests. He also brings guests from all over the industry and talks to them. It's a definite watch if you're free on Thursdays. And if you're not, you can still listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast apps. Their mission is also to share the excitement of working with these reptiles, as well as bringing people together to promote and preserve our hobby. So what are you waiting for? Go follow and subscribe to their YouTube, their Instagram, their Facebook, and their TikTok. Thanks for sponsoring this episode, Herp Collectors.
There you go. Thanks again, Mike, for sponsoring this episode. Side note, Mike has been, I won't say pressuring me, but actually consistently telling me I need to put the podcast in audio form on, Stitcher and all the other places you can find podcasts. So I am working on that. So cousin Mike, I pushed him to do YouTube. Now he's pushing me to put the podcast audio version out. So I'm gonna be getting on top of that in the next 2 weeks. Start getting that rolling. So thanks, Mike, for that as well. See, that's one thing about friends; they'll push you to make you better, and I appreciate that so much. So before we bring on our guests, oh, you guys there, Keeper, what's up? Thanks for coming through. Mainstream Morris, what's up? Thanks for coming through. Appreciate it. So, without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Hello. How are you doing?
Hi, Deshaun. I'm good. Happy Friday.
Friday, weekend, it's here.
Actually, it's Saturday here now.
Technically, yes, this is true. Yes, I forget, you guys. It's what, like almost 1 a.m.?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for being up so late. Greatly appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. Let them know what you breed and keep. Give them a nice list of your animals. You have a lot. You have a lot of amazing animals. So go ahead. Let them know who you are.
Okay, so I'm Eve. I'm Eve's Exotic Pets from the southwest UK. And I've got kind of a range of animals really. So mainly I have royal pythons. That's that's the highest number really of snakes that I have. I've got a few big snakes. So I've got 6 retics of varying sizes. And then I've got a couple of boas, a couple of lizards, a few colubrids, some rainbow boas. Um, my kind of favourite at the moment though are my black milk snakes. I've got a pair of black
Okay.
milk snakes so they're the Lamprepeltis triangulum gygae, which it's a milk snake that is hatched at normal tricolour, and then as they shed, they get more and more black. But they're the biggest species of milk snake. They can get up to sort of 7 feet. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm looking forward to those being big black adults because they'll
Okay.
be pretty impressive snakes. So yeah, so that's
Okay.
a little bit about me really.
Nice, nice. So you on YouTube, you're on Instagram. Are you also
Yeah.
on TikTok?
No, I don't have a TikTok.
Okay.
My sister actually said to me a little while back, you need to get onto TikTok because it seems to be the place where people go to watch videos. But I just haven't, to be honest, I feel a bit old when it comes to stuff like that.
I
Probably if I
I
asked my
totally
son, he'd be
understand.
able to do it.
I totally understand. I'm still trying to figure out TikTok and what people want to see and what they care to see from me, from my channel, and what kind of things I put up there. So it is a
Yeah,
learning process. I 100% agree.
yeah,
But it is for the younger generation. So for us to keep the younger generation within this industry and excited about this hobby, I think
yeah,
it we should do it here and there and try just to see. It is very weird. I'm not gonna lie. I spend more time watching TikToks than I do actually making them.
yeah,
So yeah, it can be a time suck. So be careful with it. Oh, so guys, if you haven't already, her links are in the description down below. Go make sure you follow her on YouTube and go follow her on Instagram. Definitely go check out her channel. She is producing some interesting new Morris ball python wise. But I was hoping this episode, because I want to bring you back on and talk about ball pythons. But this
yeah.
episode, we were talking about your other reptiles. Guys, calm down. She's here already. Don't worry. My chihuahuas got excited. Oh, yeah, yeah, they're always getting excited. But this episode, I wanted to talk about your other reptiles and kind of let people in on your other reptiles, and then I can bring you back next year and we can talk about ball pythons. Even though you are had to some interesting stuff that I want to talk to you about because I've never heard of the gene. Is it It starts with an A. Is it Aurora? I think I'm
A
pronouncing it.
mule.
Okay, I've never heard of that gene until I seen it on your video, and I was like, oh, what is that? What is
Yeah.
that? So I kind of want to talk about that. We can talk about that somewhere down the road within today, but I would like to talk about your other animals and let people get to know your other. Because everybody knows ball pythons. We all love them. We all have them. But there's so many other reptiles I want the world to see and talk about. So
Mhm.
um, without further ado, let's jump into some questions and get to know a little more about you and your whole journey once I find the questions because I put them in a weird spot. Um, I think I got to make sure I have like different levels of questions. I have to double check to make sure I sent you the right questions. I know this one's always on there, so we can start with this one. How long have you had your YouTube channel?
Probably around a year. So
Okay,
not very long. I might have to double
okay,
check for exacts, but um, yeah, a year and a half most, I would say.
okay. So you pretty much started in the pandemic as well as almost everybody else in the last
Yeah.
recent. So that makes perfect sense. I mean, that pandemic made people very sad, but also started them on YouTube, which is a positive. So you got to
I
find
mean,
the good and the bad.
I think I had a YouTube channel for maybe a bit before, but I didn't start actually properly uploading videos
Okay.
for a while. So yeah.
So like everybody else, you had a YouTube channel watching other people's stuff or Googling stuff, how to fix this, how to make this. And then you're like, I could put content up. What am I doing? Let me
Yeah,
put some stuff up. Okay,
I can have a
okay,
go at that. Yeah, yeah.
okay. So when you first started, how was it for you? Did you just really wanted to get your voice out there, or you just wanted to find other people with the animals you had, or what was your inspiration to start your channel?
A bit of all of that, really. It's just I enjoy talking about things that I'm passionate about. So
Okay.
I think it was mostly just having an opportunity to talk about things that I like, and if other people find that interesting and want to listen, that's great, isn't it? That's kind of
Yeah.
where I started from, really. Probably like most other people, I started off watching, you know, I mean, I started off keeping snakes when I was a teenager,
Hmm.
um, and I had a gap in the middle when I had I've got two children that are older, and then I've got a set
Okay.
of 3-year-old twins that came along obviously later on.
Oh,
But when I had my older two boys, I kind of put the my snake obsession on the back burner a bit, really.
understandable. Understandable.
And then when they got older and I was in a better position, I kind of started again. But I started off big the second time. I started off with berms the second time, because I've always been fascinated with big snakes. So it was, yeah, I went straight in for the big guns, really. And then and I never wanted royal pythons. Never. I never wanted.
Oh,
I but I started off watching um, like Brian Barchek, Billy, Dave Palumbo, the big
hmm,
names,
of
Brian
course.
Cusco and those guys, and and it just kind of grew from there, really. And I thought, and I had quite a few animals at the time, and I thought I've got some quite interesting stuff that people might want to look at. That's
Okay,
kind of what spurred me on a bit, really.
okay. That's nice. Yeah, when you getting back into it and going right to the bigger snakes, that's
Yeah,
very interesting. Like you're clearly you were like, I want to work with bigger snakes.
yeah,
When I get back into this, I think that's where I'm gonna go first to get that settled into that, and then gradually move down to stuff that I might get into. Um, but thanks for coming through, Hutch. Appreciate you. Thomas, what's up? Thanks for coming through. Patrick, what's up? Mac, what's up? Thanks for coming through. Appreciate you having coming in. Marcus, what's up? Thanks for coming through. How you doing? So how did you get into Royals? Since you did bring that, I gotta bring it up. You said you didn't want them at first, but now they're the biggest thing in your collection. What happened there?
I mean, I had royals when I was a teenager, and I kind of I love I love them because I mean I love all reptiles, really, all animals, really, but I just didn't really get the fascination. So I mean, when I had them the first time round, in the UK especially,
Hmm.
um, unless you're a big breeder, so like Scott Wilkinson or those guys that do imports and stuff,
Hmm.
there wasn't any morphs really around. Um,
Oh.
I'm not that you could buy in a pet shop, and I didn't know about, I mean, and I think then it was like there used to be like um, snake forums and stuff where people would
Okay.
buy and sell, and I didn't have anything to do with that sort of stuff back then. But it was when I started, watching some of the big American breeders, and I was thinking, God, some of these colours and patterns they're coming out with are just incredible. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what piqued my interest, really, because you think, how can you breed two snakes together that look completely normal and come out with something outrageously beautiful? Like, how the hell does that happen? And it just gets you going, doesn't it? And like just gets you
Yep.
thinking about, what if I mix this with this? What would that look like? And there's just so many opportunities of different color palettes and different patterns, and
Hmm.
um well, it's endless, isn't it? Literally
Yeah,
endless.
yeah, because
Um,
every few days it seems like somebody finds a new morph, and
yeah,
now we're adding that to the list of stuff we've already been trying to hit, and we got something else
yeah,
to add to the list. So it does
yeah,
seem endless, but a great endless, not a oh my god, we're never gonna get to the end of this. No, it's a fascinating endless to find out the many different possibilities, what works with each other, what really
yeah,
works really well with each other, because with all these morphs, we still have to find stuff that work really well together to give you a really amazing animal. Um,
yeah.
and unfortunately, you go through trial and error to do that. You get animals you don't think as pretty are what you thought they would be, but then you hit a dreamsicle and you're like, oh my god, look at this thing. I didn't
Yeah.
realize I can make this. And that's the passion behind it. That's the joy of it.
Yeah.
And get to work with those animals as well. Very nice. Um, okay, so that's cool. That's cool. I like that. I like that. So, what is your favorite two reptiles in your collection?
Oh my God. Okay, so I've got a t titanium retic called
Oh,
Tallulah, and she's incredible. So I got her from a guy who I don't know, he obviously just didn't want her anymore, but she was apparently 6 months old, but she was like about that thin, and she was
oh,
covered in mites, and she had like layers of stuck shed and stuff on her,
mm,
um, and bit just for sport. So yeah, I got her, and she's now probably about 10 foot ish. But she's the most like docile. Well, she's just lovely. Like
mm-hmm,
I go in with a hook because I would with all of the big snakes. I would go in with a
mm-hmm.
hook for any of them, but she just like instantly turns off. She's like an absolute dream to handle. She's like really relaxed. She's just amazing. I have to, yeah, Tallulah I'd say is definitely got to be up there. Um, but I mean, I say that they're if I'm in here long enough, I call them all my favourites. That's the issue. So probably my favourite ball python, royal python, attacker because it's nighttime here.
um,
This girl,
oh
so she,
wow.
yeah, so she's the mum of my Amur babies, or some of
Okay.
them. So she's cinnamon desert ghost het Amur.
I
Um,
was gonna say Desert Ghost. Yeah, the Desert Ghost just pops off of it. Oh
yeah,
wow.
she's just incredible. That's Aurora. She's beautiful. But
Okay.
yeah, she's got to be one of my favourite females. You go in there, darling. I was sitting right next to her, so that's why I had to get her out. You go in there.
Okay.
And I do
So
talk to them
you,
like babies as well, which people find quite funny.
it's there's I people forget that they're just like dogs or cats. They have personalities, and
Yeah.
when you start working with them long enough, you start to see their personalities. You start to see which ones like being talked to a little more, like to be held a little more, who really
Yeah.
want to feel that closeness to you. And you get your ones where you're like, look, today's not the day. Back off, back
Yeah,
off.
not
And
today.
you're like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna change your water and let you do your thing. No problem, no problem. Um, so you just have to pay attention to them and get to know them. That's why it's very important to get to know your animals. Like some days you need to just go in your snake room and just hang out there, and not just go in there to clean. Just go in there to hang out with them, handle a couple of them, and just spend time with them. You learn little signs to pay
Hmm.
attention with them. So it's very important. So the one you got as a basically a rescue because you got the mites off of her, got her healthy and fat, and just worked with her. How was that process of going through demiting her, getting her eating, and getting her used to? Because I'm pretty sure she wasn't necessarily handled too much, so she didn't have any interaction with people. How did that go for you?
a lot of bite. It was just about building trust with her, really. She was very anxious, very nervous, very tense in the hand. You can feel when you expect. Retics are very good for their body language. They let you know exactly how they're feeling. So she was very tense, really, just anxious, like afraid.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just time. It's just time. And luckily she was young enough that she kind of grew out of it a bit as well, because as we know, small retics bite because obviously they think that we're going to eat them. And once she realized that I wasn't going to hurt her, she just calmed down and now she's turned into the most amazing animal. Like, I'll take her outside when it's sunny. I always take as many as I can outside, especially the retics, because they love the sun. And like the neighbours will come over, that people will want to touch her. There's some of them that I wouldn't let people come near. Tallulah is like bomb proof. You can touch her head, you can touch her face. She's got no problems with that whatsoever. She's amazing. Yeah.
That's great. I've had at least 2 animals that I had to help rehabilitate back to healthy and good conditions. And one was a green tree python my friend got. He got mites on it. He didn't know what he was doing. He was very new reptile keeper. He's been into fish forever. Reptiles were a whole new experiment for him. And I had to go over there and help him get the mites off, treat the snake. And it's a green tree python that is an adult, so they're very defensive. They're very, this is my space. I'm not going to let you here. And at a point, I can see the animal literally just asking for help and letting me grab it to try to relieve some of the stress it was dealing with. And that's when you realize, like, we have a big responsibility taking care of these animals and being there for them when they need us. So I hope people don't take it lightly. I get it. You want a cool pet, but take time, do your research, learn what the animal needs to thrive and be healthy. And if you can't do what that animal needs, maybe that might not be the animal for you. Go get a goldfish. A lot less time, and just put flakes in the water and you're good. But
especially retics, because they can be so challenging to keep. They can be rewarding, but the key thing that I always say to people about the big snakes, any big snake actually, is I only ever handle them in daylight, and I only ever feed them at night. I've been on a couple of lives and people have said, "Oh, get out a retic," and I'm like, "Nah, it's nighttime. I would never. I don't want to be bit. Like, it's nighttime. It's food time for them." And they know the only time I go in there when after dark is when I'm going to feed them. That's the one piece of advice I always give people if they want to keep big snakes, is do not mix up handling and feeding times. Only ever go in and handle and do maintenance and water and stuff daylight, and only ever feed after dark, because they're nocturnal predators. So you should never mix the two, and that's a key thing I think with getting retics to be a little bit better balanced. It's just make sure you've got those like key timings in place. It just manages the risk of getting bitten as well.
Yeah, that's very smart. I'm just putting a note down because I might use that as a clip for people to see that, because that's very smart to make sure you set a clear day and night cycle for them. Like, this is when you eat, and this is when I do everything and take you out. But they're very smart, and they get into behaviors. They have schedules, and when you get them on a schedule, they'll stay on that schedule as long as you stay on that schedule. So that's very smart. I wanted a anaconda at one point.
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, you know what? That's a pretty big snake, and I don't need a big snake like that. I know my limits. It's like, you know what? That's not the snake for me. So I got a red-tailed boa, which doesn't get nearly as big, but a little
Beautiful.
easier to work with.
Yeah. If I'm having a bad day, Gashawn, I will go on and have you seen the video that Chandler put out a long time ago before he went a little bit batshit crazy with the yellow anacondas? And he went and
Okay.
rescued 2 yellow anacondas. The funniest video because they just bite him
Oh,
for sport, and it is hilarious. But
I'm gonna
it's
have to check
one of
that
the
video
funniest
out.
things. No matter how many times I watch it, it still cracks me up because it's just so funny. Because they just bite for fun. It's yeah.
Yeah, and I was told they're very bitey animals, and not necessarily out of defense. It's just, hey, I'm gonna bite you right now. Just deal with it. Um, but I truly, because I like the water aspect to them, is they like to be in the water. I wanted to have like a
Yeah,
huge tank with a water side and a dry side, and then I realized I would need a room for how big this snake normally would get, and to have that kind of room it should have. I don't think I can do that. At the time I was living in an apartment, so I knew I couldn't do it in an apartment.
yeah,
I, maybe maybe in 10 years when my kids are a little older and we get a little more space, maybe I'll get an anaconda as a baby and raise it up and have a section of the uh, basement for it to have its own space, maybe. But that's an animal that lives what 20, 30 years. So you really that's a long term commitment with that animal.
yeah,
So you definitely gotta be on top of what you're doing with them. Be prepared to have that animal for that long of a time. Um,
yeah.
oh wow, Top Blue Reptiles, thanks for coming through. Jeremy, what's up? Thanks for coming through. Uh, El Herp Reptiles, what's up? Thanks for coming through. I think I seen a picture of, I think it was Clutch Two for you on the ground. I gotta go check out your videos. I'm so behind on watching videos. I'm so behind. I have so many videos in my watch later list because I'll see it while I'm scrolling on YouTube and I'll just click it. I'm like, I'm gonna watch that later. I'm gonna remember. I'm gonna watch it later. But
Clutch
I
two
gotta check
is
that
like there. That's clutch two
out.
here.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Nice. So how many clutches? This is not one of the questions because we're talking ball pythons. How many clutches were you expecting this year?
So I paired 12 females.
Okay.
Um, Two of them I wasn't hopeful were going to go. They were young and they were on the smaller side.
Okay.
But they were just heavy enough. So but they didn't go. I'm not, that's fine. But I've got 10 clutches. So 10 out of 12 isn't bad.
That's
Um,
definitely not bad.
so yeah, so clutch two, the one that you're on about up there, that was so that's Aurora's clutch, the female that I
Okay.
pulled out. Yes, that's her clutch. And I've got a mule in that clutch. So an Amur
Nice.
Desert Ghost Cinnamon, and she is a stunner. Um,
So
yeah,
that is that a recessive gene? The
yes, yeah,
mule? Okay.
yeah.
So is it a pattern or a color mutation or is it both?
It's mainly pattern. I saw it initially, so I got two males and three female hets
Okay.
from Marco Morphy's over in Holland.
Okay.
Um, Nicest guy in the world, by the way. I would recommend him to anybody. Lovely, lovely man. Um, and yeah, so I first saw it, and um, it kind of reminded me a bit like Puzzle, which I really liked at the time. And there wasn't really a lot of Puzzle around outside of the USA, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought, and this was a few years back. So I got the 2.3. So I got that girl who's visual desert ghost, and I got a male the same as her who's visual desert ghost cinnamon. He's het amur and also 66% het hypo.
Mm.
Um, and then I got two triple hets. So the female is a Mojave cinnamon triple het amur desert ghost hypo, and the male was a pewter triple het of the same, and then just a double het normal female. So I got a pretty good batch over from Marco, and he was amazing to deal with, really amazing. And I kind of lucked in a bit really, because Scott Wilkinson, who lives also obviously in the UK as well, he was going over to Europe to pick up some stuff, so he grabbed them for me. So yeah, it was really good actually. Yeah, an exciting project. At the time, I believe, I know one person got another het not long after me from Marco. But I think at the time I was like the first that brought a Muir into the UK. But I didn't get any visuals, they were all hets. And I know that Gareth at Clean Balls, he's got some really nice visuals in since then. But yeah, obviously this year I've hatched the female from Clutch 2 over there, that we spoke about, and then I've over in the other hatchling rack I've got a male Desert Ghost, a Muir. He is insane, and another female exactly the same as the female over here. So she's a Muir Desert Ghost Cinnamon. She's also, and they look identical, which is really weird because obviously they've got same dad but different mums. But they've both got this like really like aberrant stripe down the back of their neck, like a dark stripe that goes back. But exactly the same on both. It's really beautiful. It's weird that they're so similar, obviously from separate clutches.
That's a really defining pattern morph if that's what it's doing, where you can still see it instantly in different animals that have different parents, and you still like, yeah, there it is right there. So that's a very defining pattern morph right there. Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, the Desert Ghost that I got from Marco is incredible. In the first clutch over there, I got a Desert Ghost male that I was holding back because he's 66% het for a Muir, but he's got really strong markers. A Muir's got really decent het markers. So but just single gene Desert Ghost, he's insane. Like to look at, he's like wow, like black in the contrast between his pattern and the black is just like crisp. And I'm absolutely delighted with all of them, to be honest. That clutch, those two clutches.
So besides Desert Ghost and Mule, what other recessives are you working with in your ball python?
So I hatched my first clown this season.
Oh, congrats.
So I got a pair of hets from Marv at MJ's in the UK. Love Marv and Jay are lovely, lovely guys. I've spent a bit of time with them, and they've got something weird going on in their clown project. So the clown boy that I hatched out looks like a leopard, but the parents are completely normal. So yeah, there's something. He thinks that there might be like a krypton or cryptic type something going through his clown project. So yeah, that clown is pretty nice. I've hatched some genetic stripes this year. What other? I had a few codom clutches because, to be honest, last year, and I won't make that mistake again, all the females that were ready I paired, which was a bit of a rookie mistake really, I think, because I didn't need them all, but what I wanted was more females to hold back. I'm trying to, unless there's something that I really, really need to buy, I'm trying to keep a closed collection because I had an issue last year with nidovirus. So it's like a swear word in the hobby, and I spoke to a few people like last year, and they're like, "Oh, well, there is no nidovirus in the UK," and I was like, "Well, yeah, there is, because I mean, in my real life, obviously I've spoken to you previously, and I'm a nurse in real life, and I was an infection control specialist for quite a long time. So, I mean, I've got hand gel dispensers on my walls and like gloves, and I'm a little bit anal when it comes to like cleanliness and stuff
There's
like that.
nothing wrong with that. There's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with that.
but it was like, so I think it originated from the berms,
Okay.
and I think berms are particularly susceptible to respiratory disease because of how their lung anatomy is. And they're very sedentary, so they're very big and they're very sedentary, and their lung design is crap. So they're very susceptible to any type of respiratory disease whatsoever. And I spent a lot, $4.5 grand, testing my whole collection. So everything in this room, apart from the babies, obviously, but the parents are clear. Everything has been tested in the whole room. And out of my whole collection, and I think at the time we tested 78, including the lizards at that time, so everything in the room. And there were only 5 positives out of the whole room. And obviously they were destroyed. They had to be put to sleep, which was horrendous. But it was just kind of a bit of a testament to, because you hear people saying stuff like, oh, well, if one snake's got it, they've all got it. It's airborne. There's a lot of misinformation out around it. Nidovirus is the same group as SARS, so the same group as COVID in terms of its genetics. So it's not airborne, it's droplet transmission and contact. So as long as your snakes don't have face-to-face contact with each other, with each other's feces, and as long as you are careful with your hand hygiene in between snakes, there's no reason why you would spread viruses around your whole collection. So yeah, it was a bit of an eye-opener for me, and because my collection was like in its infancy, really, I had a lot of snakes that I'd got from loads of different places. Like my berms, they were rescues, they'd been dumped. Three of them had been dumped at my local reptile shop. So I suspect that's where it came from with hindsight. But yeah, it's something that people don't really talk about, and I think we should, as a community. I think it should be talked about. I'm not saying that everyone should go and spend $4.5 grand testing all their snakes. But what I am saying is, if you've got snakes that are showing any type of like issues with shedding, if they are being kept at the right humidity, if they are sneezing, if there's any type of mucus around the mouth, if you notice that their mouths are a bit too red, don't sell them to other people. Keep it. Don't move that stuff around. Like, if you can see, and what was really interesting, Gushon, was because I have a vet here, and I assisted, and we swabbed every single snake. It took a while, but we wrote down, so we could see straight away which snakes were going to have issues, because you could see that their mucosa in their mouth was red, where it should be like a pale pink. It looked red, and only little bits. It wasn't like, oh my god, that mouth looks horrendous. That's a little bit darker than it should be, or that mouth is a little bit more wet than it should be. And all of the ones that we when we swabbed, we thought looked not normal, they were the 5 that tested positive. So that was really interesting. So what it kind of highlighted to me was, just check when you buy snakes. There's nothing wrong with opening their mouths and having a look inside. Have a look at it. Does it look healthy? Is it pale pink? It shouldn't be dark. It shouldn't be red. It should just be pale.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. Just because those viruses can devastate entire collections, and there was a period of
definitely.
time where we had done the swabs, and I was waiting for the results, and I was kind of doing the normal maintenance stuff that you have to do, thinking I might have you put down next week. Do you know what I mean? Like, and every different tub I was opening, and every enclosure I was thinking, this could be the last time I do this. Like,
Yeah,
and it does affect you. It affected me for a long time. Um, and I just feel like it's almost like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. But I think we need to talk about it as a community, because people. I'm not saying people sell sick snakes on purpose,
hmm
but you know, yeah, I think we could be a little bit more careful. That's what I'll
that's the
say.
thing about the nidovirus too, that it can lay dormant for a long period of time,
Yes, yeah,
and people won't even know they have it.
yeah,
I agree with you. We should definitely talk about it more, bring it up more, and give people good information on it.
yeah,
Definitely should happen. I know Philip from Pack Pythons, he had it at one point. It devastated his collection to an extent. He didn't shy away from it. He talked about it for a
yeah,
good 3, 4 months every week, did videos on it, went through the process of testing and showed what tests you should be doing.
yeah,
And like now he's building racks that people are buying, and he's changing the industry rack wise a little bit with his new design with it. But he didn't shy away from it, and a lot of people were like, "Yep, well, we're not going to see him anymore. He's telling people he's got nidovirus. No one's going to buy anything from
mm,
him." And I don't know if he changed to racks on for that reason, but it gave him a new lane that he found himself into. But I think people trusted him more because he was so open about his experience and
yeah,
what was happening to him. Um, the more we don't talk about it, the more we make it a giant, scary monster. If we
mm,
bring it into the light, it's a lot less scary and easier for people to deal with, and have good information on how to deal with it. So I think that's very important to talk about it even more than we
yeah.
have, honestly. Um,
And the
maybe
thing
it's
is,
good.
if I can now say to people, my whole collection have been tested. Like, I
Yep.
know that my yes, I had five. They were put to sleep, but my whole collection have been tested. So I know, hand on heart, when I'm selling animals now,
Yeah.
they're fine, and I health check them because I know what I'm looking for.
hmm
Um, which I think as sellers we need to take that responsibility, because when you're producing animals that people are paying potentially a lot of money for, we have we I feel a responsibility that they're healthy and they're okay. Obviously we do the normal, have they had a few feeds, or have they had enough feeds, are they feeding consecutively, are they pooing, are they shedding? But actually we should be opening their mouths and saying, does everything look okay, does everything look normal in there? Is this going to be all right? I've got that assurance now, because I've I had to spend the money, because I was just completely paranoid, and it was the only way I was going to be able to move forward with my projects. Because I got to the point where I was thinking, well, I can't pair anything, because I don't want to risk exposing a female or a male to something that could infect them. So I had to do that for my own
Yeah.
peace of mind, and for the peace of mind of people buying these snakes in seasons to come. I got majorly stung. I don't know if you saw her on my Instagram, but I bought a Boland's python. Um,
Oh, I was gonna ask about that one because you didn't list that one. Oh.
mm.
Oh.
So
So what
yeah, so
happened?
obviously, so I had the Duchess. She was an adult Boland's python. She was 7 years old. I paid a lot of money for her, as you can imagine. And soonish after I bought her home, her scales didn't look quite right, and I thought, change of environment, change of food. She'd only been fed rats, and I'd started feeding her stuff that would be more natural to her wild environments, like quail. They eat some marsupials, so I was buying rabbit instead to sort of substitute for that. And so and she started to shed a lot in quick succession. And I thought, she's had a change of environment, she's had a change of food. You make excuses as you go along. But yeah, it got pretty horrific, and I won't go into too much detail because I struggle to talk about it really. But she ended up, she had a big tumor on her pancreas, a cancerous tumor. So she was never going to survive. But the most frustrating thing was she'd because I'd kept her cooler and more in line with what the temperatures are in Papua New Guinea. She'd gone into a cycle. So when they took her into surgery, they thought that she had gone into follicular stasis. So she'd gone to like pre-ovulation and then stopped, and then the eggs had gone bad. But actually what it was this big pancreatic mass that she had. But the most frustrating thing was when they were in surgery, they were looking at her her ovaries were perfectly healthy, and she had 35 millimeter follicles. And I was like pre-ovulation, like literally pre-ovulation. So yeah, that was an absolute shitter, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's the nature of animals, Gershon, and I was going to buy her whatever, and I know it might sound absolutely mental to people, but the time that I had with her, I probably would do it again. I would probably do it again, because she was just incredible. 1 in a million, absolutely 1 in a million.
Those are those memories that you hold on to, and even though there's pain at the end of them, you would rather go through them again than not have them. So I can understand that. I had my Emerald Tree Boa, like the whole process of getting her doing her colors change, me seeing her color change, and then her passing away. I would do it all over again because it was great having her, getting to experience her, taking the time to get her to trust me to be able to hold her and watching her grow. Those are moments you don't want to let go, even though you know there's pain at the end of those moments. You still want to have those moments. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh, it sucks.
She's now a very expensive. She's now a very expensive paperweight upstairs. So I had her cremated. Because they say to you afterwards, don't they? What would you like us to do with the remains? And I was a bit like, well, I don't know. I don't know. And I thought, do you know what? Actually, I want her back. So she's now upstairs in a box, in like a nice box, but she's like the most expensive paperweight. Yeah.
I mean, it is that shock of that moment when they ask you, "What do you want?" You're like, "I don't want to have this reminder," but then those emotions subside and you realize, no, I want to still have a piece of her. I want to have something I can look at and remember her by. And sometimes that's her. Like that's why certain people get pets taxidermy, because they want to have that memory in their house. And I can understand that. Same reason why we have urns of our loved ones, or mantles to our loved ones, because we want to keep those memories alive. And visually seeing that helps keep that memory alive, because we get old and we forget things. But seeing something brings you back to that moment in time where you had that loved one or that loved pet. Those are beautiful moments. That's part of being human beings. It's hard to explain, but I understand. I totally understand. So just for clarification, what are some signs that you look for Nido in your reptiles, so people can kind of start to look around and keep an eye out for this?
so crackling. So if you hear any like crackly breathing, like if you've got a snake that hisses, especially, sometimes if they hiss, you can hear crackles, excessive secretions in the mouth or around the nose, anything like that. If you hear them sneeze or cough, if they go off food, so anorexia is quite a good indicator for nidovirus. So they stop eating, they can regurgitate meals as well. I didn't actually have any of that, but I know that that is a common thing with a lot of the viruses, not just nidovirus. Arenavirus is a big one for regurgitation, and that's the main viral cause of inclusion body disease that particularly affects boas, but for all snakes, but particularly boas. IBD, not a great thing to have. I haven't had any of that, but as you can imagine, as a nurse, I did a lot of reading around this stuff, and as an infection control nurse as well. So, like, I did a lot of reading about the viruses and transmission and how to isolate it and how to prevent moving it from one place to another. So yeah, it was a learning curve, and quite an expensive learning curve. But you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, being open about the good, the bad, and the ugly. But there are certain things that people still don't talk about on the ugly side, and like you say, I think nidovirus is one of them. Yeah, it's definitely something we need to kind of blow the lid off it a bit, really, and take it out and shake it off and say, look, it's not scary, you know, and it should be more about education. Like if you've got a big collection, like, you know, if I'm handling a clutch of babies, I'd handle them. But I'd handle all of those babies. But if I then went to handle a baby from another clutch, I'd gel my hands in between. Or if I then went to touch an adult, I'd gel my hands, and then I'd gel my hands in between another one. Just because, you know, I know my collection are clear, but it's still good practice.
Keep it in the practice, keep it a habit, keep it something you do every time. So basically, every time you go to touch a different snake, sanitize your hands. Every time you go. So how do you do that with feeding when you're feeding a large collection? How do you do? What would be the best, safest way of doing that?
So I would only offer a rack to one snake. So if I offered, say, a rack to Aurora, I wouldn't touch anything in her enclosure with it. I wouldn't touch her with it. If I did touch her with it, or if she touched it, I would bin it if she didn't eat it. Yeah, because what you don't want to do is touch them or their environment, and then go and then potentially offer that to somebody else. So just keep it all separate. Just keep it all separate. But I mean, if I offered it to her and she didn't touch it, and I didn't touch anything within her environment, then, you know, that's fine. I probably would offer it to somebody else. But if it touches anything, I'd bin it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, before we go to the next question, we are gonna do tip of the week. Tip of the week is when I post on my Instagram or Facebook. Under that post, you can put a tip, whether it's YouTube, reptile related, or life related. Whichever one gets the most likes gets on the next episode of the podcast and gets a little shout out. So without further ado, here is this week's tip.
This week's tip comes from Ball Pythons 9. Raise ambient humidity by setting up a fish tank. Then when you become addicted to fish too, your only issue will be keeping humidity down. I did not read that beforehand, but that's a great tip. I'm not getting addicted to fish though, Joe. But great tip. Go check out Ball Python 9 on their Instagram. And they have a YouTube channel, so check out their YouTube channel as well. Thanks for the tip. And that has been this week's Tip of the Week.
There we go. Great tip. I will not get addicted to fish because I already have 2 fish. My daughter has a fish, my son has a fish, and I'm the only one that cleans that fish tank. So I'm over fish. Not something I wanted, and I'm the only one taking care of it. So I'm over it. But great tip, Joe. Thanks for giving the tip. Go check out Joe on Instagram and his YouTube channel. Yeah, so let's get back into before we get into a question. I've seen a couple people jump in. I want to say hi to them. What's up, Kent? Thanks for coming through. Come on, I pushed the button. There we go. My computer's slow sometimes. What's up, Kent? Thanks for coming through. What's up, Mike, the sponsor of this episode? Appreciate you coming through. What's up, Big Tank Hank? Thanks for coming through. Appreciate you. So let's go ahead and hit another question once I find the questions again. So, what camera do you use to film your YouTube videos?
So I'm well behind on this, so I still just use my phone.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
everything I do is on my phone. Everything
Yeah.
I do. I film, I edit, I make thumbnails, I upload. The podcast I even do on my phone sometimes because my computer's acting up. So don't be sorry. The phone is a computer anyway, so why not use it to that extent? So I totally understand that. So since we've had a great conversation about so many different things, we're gonna shoot through these questions. I try not to keep people here more than an hour, and I know it's super late for you, and I want you to get back to your family and everything. So since we're already on your phone, do you edit your videos on your phone too?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, what program do you use to edit your videos? There's nothing wrong with looking it up. I've actually found a new free editor. It's called CapCut. It's pretty decent, pretty easy to use. Not too. It has a lot of other features on it too, like you can add weird graphics and stuff, and it's free. So I definitely like that. But which one do you use?
It's just called Video Maker.
Okay, very simple. So are you on
Yeah,
the iPhone or Android?
Android.
Android. So there you go, Android. Even more video editors you can use. Um,
Hmm.
it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to get real detailed editing, you might have to go spend a couple of bucks to find a good editor. Adobe Premiere has good editors. There's I think it's Vega, I think it's called. That's a paid one. It does a lot of stuff, movie quality editing. But if you're just trying to, cut some stuff, add some music, a couple graphics, you get a free editor that does the exact same thing and saves you so much money. And really simple to use too.
Yeah.
YouTube is your friend on how to use half these things. So did you have to look at YouTube videos to learn how to edit, or did you just play around and figure it out?
I just played around with it really. There was this guy, is it Primal? I want to say it's something Primal. He does really good videos on like thumbnails, intros,
Okay.
editing, really good videos. I watched a few of his videos, and that kind of spurred me on a bit as well.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some really good advice and stuff on YouTube for how to put videos together and how to make the most of it, because there's like optimum times as well, isn't there? Like, you
Yeah.
know, people watch them, I think it's the most at like 10 minutes, isn't it? People can give 10 minutes to a video. um but yeah, there's some really good pointers that you can get, definitely.
And I think that time is going down too because TikTok all their videos are so short, so people are getting down to, I got 2 minutes. I got 2 minutes to watch your stuff now. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, there's so much information to cram in 2 minutes. Why? um, here's another question. So, I didn't realize you guys couldn't feed live. I learned that from Paul. So you clearly can't breed your own food. So do you buy your food frozen? Is there a certain technique? Because this is something I have Paul to make a video on, and I don't know if you might have a video on how you unthaw your frozen thawed. Is a certain technique you use when you do your for unthawing your frozen thawed?
So when I get home from work at about, it's supposed to be about 4:30, I will get out everything, anything that I want to thaw for that night. And then I'll leave it on top of Tallulah's enclosure. I'm looking up there because that's Tallulah's enclosure.
Okay.
I'll leave it on top of where her heat is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll turn the lights off. Um, and then I'll leave it for as long as I can, really. So probably about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, to thaw and get to room temperature. And obviously that gives the snakes enough time to be in the dark to think it's nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then a lot of them will take at room temperature because it's quite warm in here.
Mm-hmm.
But what I normally do is bring a jug down just with some pre-boiled water in, and then I'll just dip the head in. So any that hesitate on taking, I'll just dip the head in really hot water, dry it off, and then 99% of the
Okay.
time they take it like that.
Okay.
But I think I don't know the law inside out about live feeding. But I think in this country you are allowed to if it's the only way to make them eat. Like if I had a snake that refused to eat frozen thawed after so much time, I haven't ever done this, but I would be allowed to feed it live if it was a life and death thing. If you could prove, and if you could say, if I didn't feed it live it was going to die,
Mm-hmm.
then you'd get away with it. You'd be very unlucky for somebody to press charges for that.
Okay.
But I mean, a lot of people do breed their own rodents here, but they
Okay.
just have to sort of humanely euthanize before feeding. I buy all of mine because I don't have the time, literally, in a day to look
It is
after rodents as well.
so
I'd love
time
to,
consuming.
but I just
It
don't.
is so time consuming.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I am in the process of either my wife doesn't want me to breed rodents in the house.
no,
So I'm trying to either find a friend who will breed it at their house. I go over there, help clean, maintenance, all that good stuff. But the collection is growing so vastly, I need 100% source of rats immediately. And the breeders out here have been kind of overwhelmed with how many people need rats. We had like at least four different rat breeders stop, so everybody started going to like three different guys and just decimating what they had available. And now they're like, look, I got maybe two for you today. So
yeah,
it's becoming a situation where you might have to start breeding your own to make sure you have a consistent set of food for your animals. Um, I, I do like the idea of breeding your own so you know what's going into your rats. That way you know what's going into your snakes. That is always amazing. But the time consuming from breeding the rats, it takes so much time. It's 2 to 3 hours of cleaning depending on how many rats you have.
yeah,
And then that's a whole nother bill. It gets a little cheaper because the food and bedding is a little cheaper than buying the rats outright, but it is something you have to think about when you're either becoming a breeder or if you want to have a large collection of reptiles. Their food source is very important for you to lock down and be able to get that on a consistent basis. So that's another thing to pay attention to, especially when you get into bigger snakes. Their food source gets bigger, and sometimes can be hard to get. Um, uh,
So Izzy down here behind me, she's
okay.
she's a big, so I think she's about 16 feet. She's a big retic, and
Mm,
she'll eat like 2 or 3 big rabbits in a sitting.
oh
But
wow.
I'm lucky because my mum is a farmer, and
Okay.
and there's obviously in the wild there's big problems with numbers of rabbits, and
Mm,
so people shoot them to keep the numbers down because they kind of decimate hedgerows and they're real pests. Um, so yeah, so normally obviously those rabbits would be discarded or whatever, but I get them and freeze them. So as long as they've been frozen for like 2 or 3 weeks, you kill any sort of parasites that might be inside. So yeah, I do it that way for the big snakes. It just keeps the
okay.
cost down.
Yeah, it definitely helps with the cost.
Mm.
Um, yeah, we have rabbit issues here too, and some people, I don't do this. They shoot rabbits and then they'll freeze them, assuming that it's been frozen for long enough. Anything in there would be dead, so I can feed that to my snake. I don't agree with that because why
I
risk
mean, that's
that?
what I do. That's
Is
what I
that what?
do.
So does that
But
work?
yeah, I think
Or
so. Yeah.
okay, so I was always like, there's so many things that live
Mm.
in the weirdest environments, and we don't know that can still live through freezing and stuff. So I was like, I'll just bite the bullet and buy it. But if it works,
There's very few organisms that will live sub-zero, um,
okay,
and I don't think I don't want to say none exist in the UK, but it would be extremely rare to find an organism that would live below zero. I think in the UK, um,
okay,
that they would be more you'd be more likely to find them in places like really cold places, like on the poles
hmm,
probably, because everything there is used to living in really cold environments, so they have to be able to tolerate that type of temperature to survive. um, but here and most places in the USA where temperatures overall are quite mild, relatively speaking, you I don't think you'd find stuff that would survive being frozen for 2 or 3 weeks.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Hey Tammy, thanks for coming through. Yeah, like you said, 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks to kill any pesticides. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, okay. I'm gonna have
I
to.
mean,
I
I
do.
probably do freeze them for more than 2 or 3 weeks actually, because the big retics that I've got, they'll only eat every couple of months. So, and I've always got
Okay,
a supply. So they've usually been in there a lot longer than that, to be honest.
gotcha. Okay, because I do have the red tail boa, and she does eat like 3 to 4 pound rabbits. I feed her once a month. Um, she's been eating rats because my friend let go a lot of breeder rats, so he just gave me like 15. So she's been eating on those for the last 4 months now. Doing really good on those, so I was like, I'm okay for a while. Um, but yeah, I might have to go rabbit hunting one of these seasons to get some rabbits just to be safe. Um,
You have to be
so here,
careful what they shoot them with, though, because that's the only thing. It has to be a
okay.
rifle that will go straight through.
Mm,
Because if they shoot with anything that's not powerful enough, you'll get the shot still inside of the animal. So it needs to be it needs to be high enough powered that the bullet goes straight through and
okay.
out. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. Good to know. Okay. I seen somebody say something there. Come on, Peter, go a little faster. Okay, kill a faster. Yeah. Hurrah. Hurrah, food, dog, it is for 3 weeks, so wow. Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Kill pesticides. Okay. So here is my last question for you. If you guys have any questions for Eve, put them in the chat. We might get to them now. I might write them down, or when we bring her back on, we might ask them there. Sometimes not keep her too long, and I think this one's gonna be a deep question. We're gonna talk about this for a little bit. But what is your dream animal to have? So it could be reptile related, it could be a marsupial, it could be, I wouldn't say a non-existent creature, but something that you normally people wouldn't see you have. What would it be for you?
I mean, my dream animal was always a Boland's python, which obviously I've kind of had, and that didn't really go very well. But um, if space was no issue,
Yep.
um, I would really like a croc monitor.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So what is
Yeah.
it about them that excites you and make you want one?
I think their personality and their intelligence. Um, they're one of those lizards that when you look at them, they look like they're thinking. Um, I think that about retics as well sometimes, because when you look at them, that you can see that they're kind of looking at you and their eyes are moving, and they're taking stuff in. And croc monitors
Mm-hmm.
are very well, and most monitors actually, but I think the croc monitor, in terms of their size and their head, they just look like dinosaurs, don't they? They're just a really cool animal. Um,
Okay.
Rhino iguana would be another one, I think. I don't think they're quite as sharp and intelligent the croc the croc monitors, but
I think
they
I've
are
seen those.
really handleable, aren't they?
I think I've seen those before. If I'm visually remembering the right animal, they are cool looking. They're really interesting looking. Um, okay.
And they
Okay.
look like little dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That is okay. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that, but that's a cool animal. Okay. Wow.
What did you
Yeah,
think I was
yeah,
going
has
to
space.
say? What were you
I
expecting?
so I remember having this question here, and then we talked about your Bowen's python, and then I was like, "Oh no, this is sad." I don't. Then I was like, "Oh," so I was worried, but I was expecting that because that totally threw off my idea of what was going to be there now. Because I was like, "Oh, I believe that was her dream animal," and then so
Yeah.
that kind of threw that off. But I am pleasantly surprised by that your answer. I like that. I like that. Um, because I know you have like what maybe two or three lizards or monitors, so you don't have a lot of lizards. So I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting a four-legged reptile. Honestly, I wasn't. I was expecting either I thought you were gonna say anaconda, and we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, oh, don't say anaconda, because I'm gonna be so jealous. Oh, but that is cool. That is cool. Okay. Oh wow, that's cool. No. Well, Eve, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you would like to promote? Let people know you got coming up. Any videos you might be working on soon coming up? Let the people know what you're doing coming soon.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I've got an Instagram, I've got a YouTube. Um, I've been really slack on the YouTube front recently, but I'm gonna start trying to put a little bit more time into it, and making time for it. Really, I've had some really cool clutches, which aren't on, they're on Instagram, but they're not on YouTube. So I'd really like to do a couple of videos on some of the babies that I've got, and
Hmm.
then probably some stuff about what I'm planning for next season, or seasons coming up, because obviously I've hatched some pretty awesome stuff this season. So I'm kind of now having to work out what the hell I'm going to do with them in a couple of years' time, or like the male. I'm thinking, oh my god, I've got this male now that's absolutely insane, and what am I going to use him for? So yeah,
Hmm.
there's going to be quite a bit going on. Um, I'm also, so Izzy that I spoke about, my big female retic, we're going to blank off the end of this room. I'm very lucky with the space that we've got here. I've got kind of half of the floor print of the house as my reptile room.
Okay.
So we're going to blank off the end and make Izzy a really nice walk-in enclosure.
Oh.
So that, yeah, we've started buying stuff for that already. So probably it'll probably be in the new year now, because obviously we've got Christmas coming and stuff, which obviously is going to cost a fortune as well. But yeah, that's something that will be coming up. That'll be quite cool. That probably people will want to have a look at, because building big enclosures can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, with the water. So Izzy absolutely loves water. So definitely
Okay.
there's going to be a big water element to that, because I mean, she's got like a 70-litre rub in there as her water bowl, and she's
Okay.
often trying to get in there. She can hardly fit in there now. So so she's
Okay.
yeah, so that I'm looking forward to that. That'll be something pretty cool to share with everyone too, I think.
Yeah, I know people would like to see that build. People love seeing the cage build, especially walk-in cage. That's gonna be amazing to watch, to see that process
Yeah.
of that. Oh wow! So guys, you got that to look forward to on our channel. So you know you need to go hit that follow button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel on her Instagram. Um, you're at. I think you were. I think I saw you like at 2.3 or 2,300 something on your YouTube. Um, do you have? Do you guys do UK guys do giveaways for like subscribers on your YouTube?
I would do, yeah. Yeah, I would
Okay.
do. I'll probably do one at like 3,000 or something, yeah.
Okay, so you hear it now, guys. Get her to 3,000, and she's thinking about doing a giveaway. So now it's even more reason to go follow her channel and go check out her beautiful animals, the cages she already had. Cause did you guys build all your cages? Well, most of your cages, the bigger
The,
retic cages.
yeah, the big ones, yeah.
Okay, so you have
Yeah.
DIY videos of that also on your channel.
I think there's probably pictures. I don't know if we recorded a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, because the girls were quite small then. So I don't think
Mm.
I videoed a lot of it. But yeah, so Izzy's got a big 8x3x3, um,
Oh wow.
which is, yeah, it sounds big, but it's not big enough for her.
Yeah.
Um,
How
you
big
know, I
is
know.
she?
So she's about 16 feet. Um, so she yeah, and I know people keep them in things that size and smaller, but I really want to see her climbing. I really want to have
Yeah, just
something
want to
in there
give her
that she
that
can climb
space.
up on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and she
makes
loves
perfect
water,
sense.
so I'd like to have like a bigger water feature for her that
So,
she can get
so are you
into.
trying to get her to have enough room so she can submerge her whole body in the water?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's gonna be so cool.
yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be real cool. Oh wow. Oh, I'm excited for this now. Oh wow. So I'll be looking for this if you guys aren't, because I'll be looking for this cage build, because that's gonna be a sight to see. That's oh yeah, that's gonna be exciting. But thank you so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. Taking the time or the night out of your night to be able to hang out with us, talk with us, and let us learn a little more about you and your YouTube and reptile journey. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
No problem. All right, guys, before we go, we have to say thanks to our sponsor for this episode. That means I have to click a button. That means I have to find it first. But here we go. Thank you to our sponsor for this episode.
This episode is sponsored by Herp Collectors. They're a family-run business specializing in investment quality morphs to help other breeders achieve their project dreams and beyond. They are working with a couple different morphs specifically. Their baseline is Clown, Desert Ghost, and Hypo. And they're dabbing a little bit in the Ultramale and Pieds as well. So definitely check them out for ball python needs. They are slowly coming up in the industry, and they're going to be producing some amazing animals very soon. But that's not all. They also have a YouTube channel. Of course, you know we're all about YouTube over here. They do a live podcast on their YouTube channel every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called Clutch Conversations. It's a great podcast. I was actually on it, and Mike does an amazing job interviewing guests. He also brings guests from all over the industry and talks to them. It's a definite watch if you're free on Thursdays. And if you're not, you can still listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast apps. Their mission is also to share the excitement of working with these reptiles, as well as bringing people together to promote and preserve our hobby. So what are you waiting for? Go follow and subscribe to their YouTube, their Instagram, their Facebook, and their TikTok. Thanks for sponsoring this episode, Herb Collectors.
All right. Thanks again, Mike, for sponsoring this episode. Appreciate you. Definitely go check them out. Their YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Morph Market, and definitely go watch their Clutch Conversations. He had a great one with Billy a couple weeks ago. Definitely go check that out. But thanks again for sponsoring. And thank you all for hanging out with us in the chat. Great questions. Well, not as many questions, but you guys enjoyed the conversation, so that's more important than anything. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with us. If you're done for the night, go to bed. I understand. But if you want to stay up a little longer, there are a couple other live shows still going on. Keith Constrictor's Hair Down Fridays is going on. Samson's Snakeatorium, their live might be ending, but maybe not. Iron Dog's live is going to start in maybe an hour or so. Michaela's live is going to start in like half an hour, I believe. So there's still shows to go watch. So go spread the love. Go watch someone else's show. But thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you again, Eve, for hanging out with us and talking with us. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. And go tell someone you love them and care about them. You never know how that might help someone's day. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
See ya.
So, Eve, stay right there. I'm going to end it, and then we can talk in the background, okay? All right.